Hi, this is State Representative J.T. Wilcox. I'm the House Republican Leader down here in Olympia, and we're just finishing up the fourth week of this year's legislative session. That means we're around 25% done. You might notice that my voice is a little weak. I've got the respiratory thing that a lot of people have right now, and I'll just do my best as we get through this. First thing I'd like to talk about is our vehicle pursuit laws that regulate how police can chase down bad guys. Most people now know that the laws in that regard were changed a few years ago to make it very difficult for the police to engage in pursuits. Those laws went way too far. I think most people with common sense could have seen that coming. And I think most Democrats now realize that that was a mistake. But in politics, it's hard to go back on mistakes. And one of the major issues down here in Olympia this year is to convince the Democratic leadership that they should advance some bills that will allow the police to do their jobs again. Everybody wants to be sure that police are accountable, and we don't want there to be any tragedies involving bystanders. But at the same time, I think the experiment of the last 2 years have shown that when criminals know that they can drive away with impunity, that emboldens them, and we end up with more crime and more victims. This is a little bit of an inside baseball time because the Democratic senator who chairs the Public Safety Committee over in the Senate, Meka Dingra, has said that she won't allow the bill a hearing. She doesn't have that power herself. The only way that she has that power is if her caucus backs her up. And so a lot of people in this legislature, there's 147 elected representatives and senators, need to speak out and make it plain that the people of Washington want this bill to advance. And we can modify it, we can amend it, we can argue about exactly what it says, but we absolutely have to have changes to the disastrous law that was passed a couple of years ago. Something else that I want to talk about, because we're coming up to a long period of floor action, is what is the process down here in Olympia, and what are the rules, and are they important? Well, after 12.25 years in the minority, I have learned a few things about process. One of them is that without process, the minority has no rights at all. And so I am a supporter of the process that we have down here. If we didn't have a process, if we didn't have a set of rules, then the majority could simply do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And I don't think that'd be a good thing for anybody in Washington, Republican or Democrat or independent. One of my jobs as the minority leader is to stand up for the process. And so I'm going to start talking a little bit more about the rules that were passed here in the House by Republicans and Democrats, agreed upon by everybody, and they talk about things like in Washington we're not allowed to read our speeches. You have to speak from the heart, and it's important that the majority, who controls all of the gavels, enforces that rule on both their own members and on Republicans. Now, we're used to being able to speak without notes because we do it all the time, and it's also our job to call points of order when the other side doesn't do it. There's a few other things that are important in process, and these have been around for hundreds of years. Experience has shown that it's important to observe these rules so that you can continue to do business. One of those, probably the most important, is we don't assign motive. We can't always read what's in someone's heart. Maybe we can never read what's in their heart. And so you don't assign motives when you are engaged in a committee or on the floor in debate. And you don't impugn the other side. You don't criticize them in ways that will cause so much resentment that you can't do business in the future. To some people, these seem like pettifoggery. To others, they understand that this is how we are able to do business year after year after year. One of my mentors in this business, who was our caucus counsel a few years ago, said this is the main rule in legislative affairs. The majority, in the end, gets to pass whatever they want, and the minority gets to decide how long it takes. And the balance between those two things are what determines what is accomplished in a session. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week.